And just a couple things at the beginning. If at any time you have a question, just feel free to just chime in, turn your mic off, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I do have an ambitious schedule laid out, so I'm going to try to go kind of rapidly at the beginning, and I'll give you a little bit of my background at the beginning so you understand like where I'm coming from. So I have a master's degree in architecture. I started working in architecture firms in New York City in, I think it was 1987. I started working in New York City at my first architecture firm. So I have a master's degree in architecture. I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy. I've worked in architecture and design for years and years. And I've taught over 120 different courses at universities and colleges and schools of architecture and design. So that's sort of my background. And I wrote a paper, it was published last summer, July 2023, called Incorporating Artificial Intelligence into a Pedagogy of like Architectural Pedagogy of Creativity that seeks creativity as an educational outcome. So I'm very interested in how AI is going to be impacting architecture and design and the role that it plays. So the title of this talk is From Hallucinations to Hallelujah, Failing Forward, Embracing Generative AI Error as the Fuel for Creative Innovation. So let me just see. There we go. Good. So I'll start off with a little story, which was, and it kind of evolves a little bit around these quotes right here. The first quote is a Miles Davis quote. Can everyone see the screen? Is that okay? Give me a thumbs up.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So the first quote is, "Do not fear mistakes, there are none." And that's a Miles Davis quote, which I wish I had learned that quote much younger, because I always feared making mistakes, and fear is the primary inhibitor to creativity. So and then a sort of along the same avenue, but a little bit different side of the street, is the Keith Richards quote, "Don't worry if you make a mistake, just repeat it." And then it's sort of same sort of idea, both musicians, just both thinking about like the value of mistakes. And well, I want to start off with a little story about architecture and design and mistakes, and how it might relate to AI and hallucinations in generative AI. So about 2013, 2014, I was asked by the United Nations to design a garden at UN headquarters in New York City. And some people came to me because I had been working in architecture firms in New York City, and they invited me to come up with some design proposals for it's called the United Nations Food Gardens. And it's on campus, on the UN campus now. It's been there since 2015. And the Secretary General liked the design so much that he held the first inaugural Nelson Mandela Award ceremony in the garden at UN headquarters. So later on, I was asked to find a tree appropriate for planting on the occasion of the signing of the Paris Climate Agreements in New York City. So that's sort of my background. So you can imagine, like, I was just someone working in architecture firms, and some people I knew asked me to come up with these designs, and it was a great opportunity. So I worked like crazy trying to come up with like, just trying to do my best work. So I was not really having too much success, and I was struggling. And I had the attic of my house in New York City was set up like my design studio. And my son, who's very curious, my son Owen, is very curious and inquisitive and playful. I was at work one day and I came home, and he had drawn all over my designs, like all over everything. And what do kids love to do? They love to trace their hand like on everything. So on all of my drawings, there was like multiple hands all over everything. And so for a moment, there was like just total disbelief. And then after another moment, it led to this creative insight that brought me on an entirely new design direction. And I went with that idea and presented it to the UN, and that's the idea that they loved the most. So it's the idea of like these accidents and these mistakes, these like hallucinations, they call them machine hallucinations, these hallucinations that generative AI produces, they can be great avenues for looking at something in an entirely new way. And that's sort of where I want to go with this. This is an image that I created in Midjourney, and the quote is it's a Winston Churchill quote. It's, "First we shape our buildings, and thereafter they shape us." So coming from an architecture background, I want to talk for a little bit about the meaning and value that architecture plays in shaping who we become. So a famous second generation modern architect, Lou Kahn, once said that the institutions live in the spaces, right? So he said that everything we make as a way of life is an instituted thing. So it's the institution of learning, it's the institution of health, it's the institution of home, it's all of these things that we establish as a way of life. And I think Winston Churchill, and this has been echoed essentially by any architect that's worth their salt, that the space you inhabit plays a part in who you become. And that's echoed across civilizations around the world. So that's part of the idea of like why I feel like the role that AI is playing in especially in generative AI, and how architects are using it professionally, and how students are using it. I'm a professor at the Boston Architectural College, and my students are using AI, and I encourage them to use it, but I encourage them to disclose that they're using it, which we've had some discussions about that because they feel like they don't have to do that, because they feel that they're the sole authors. But we'll talk about that a little later. So I do want to talk about, this is the Exeter Academy Library by Lou Kahn in Exeter, New Hampshire. It's one of the best buildings in the United States. It's a beautiful library. And this is what I was saying. The institutions live in the spaces. So the spaces we inhabit craft who we become. It's like, so it's a couple museums I want to talk about here. And I realize that this is a little bit away from talking about generative AI, but I want to establish a sort of a principal role for the value that architecture plays in crafting our culture and our civilization, and the influence, that the potential influence and the actual influence that AI is having in architecture as a profession and in architecture as an education. So on the left are two images of the Guggenheim Museum in New York City. So if you look at a museum and you think about what's the essential nature of a museum, the essential nature of a museum is a space in which you enter and move through to experience the wisdom of artists, right? And when you leave a museum, you leave having understood more about the world, having experienced the wisdom and the perspective and the insight that these artists have worked on in their collections and in the work that's on display. So the expression of, this is the Guggenheim Museum in New York City. So the expression of this museum is like, it's the expression of what a museum actually means. So a museum is a place of enlightenment, right? It's a place where you go to experience art, to become enlightened, to see the world through the eyes of others. And so what you do when you enter the Guggenheim Museum is, whoops, sorry about that. You start at the bottom and there's a ramp that takes you up, and you spiral around and around and around, experiencing all this artwork. And what are you doing as you're doing that? You're moving up into the light. So the expression of this space is you're meaningfully becoming enlightened as you move through the space, and you're physically becoming enlightened as you move up into the light. So the space becomes a metaphor for the meaning of it, right? So some of these other images on the right-hand side, you can see this image of the stairway. This is another museum in Boston, and the artwork that's collected on the lower floor is African art, and the artwork that's collected on the upper floor is European art. And this type of spatial experience, it's not that difficult to see that it's this sort of, you can see some of the images here, like the African Egyptian collections are darker, poorly lit spaces, lower ceilings. And then you go into the European collections, and there are these soaring heights, lightly colored walls, flooded with lights, with skylights. So it's this kind of spatial experience that that is reinforcing subjugation and inequity in our culture and our society. So it's just I wanted to give you these two examples, and you can see it. You can see it again. Some of these images are from a paper. I took all these images, but some of these images down below are from a paper I had published earlier. This image of a gallery on the left is I'm sorry, above on the upper image of the gallery is European Impressionist artwork. And I drew a comparison to redlining, the practice of redlining in the United States, which is where it was a government and institutional practice in the United States where poor and minority neighborhoods were disenfranchised and denied subsidized loans from the federal government and from banks. And if you lived in a redline area, you were not entitled, you didn't qualify for federally subsidized loans for businesses or for your homes. And then below that, you see in one gallery, there's African art arrayed very densely. And I compared that to a redlined street. These streets are approximately the same distance. And it's easy to see the comparison between the spaces that we inhabit, that we've established as an instituted way of life in the United States, how they continue to echo in our daily lives through the inertia, the ugly sort of inertia of history. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about creativity in the United States. So all these images I generated with Midjourney, and so this is a great quote, though. There is no doubt that creativity is the most important human resource of all. Without creativity, there would be no progress, and we would be forever repeating the same patterns. So I want to talk quickly about creativity in the United States. The United States has been suffering a creativity crisis for about 3 decades, and it roughly correlates to the rise of the home computer in the United States. So every 10 years, IQ goes up on average about 10 points. That's called the Flynn effect. The Flynn effect, every decade, the average IQ goes up about, every generation, it goes up about 10 points. So before the age of home computers, the creativity quotient also rose consistently with IQ. But since the introduction of of digital technology into the home, computer technology in the home, like computer games, children have been spending less time outside, less time playing, less time drawing and painting and exploring and acting on their curiosity. So there's been a consistent decline in creativity among students in the United States since the introduction of home computing, since the late 90s. And researchers speculate that it has to do with digital technology being introduced to young children at home. So I wanted to pull together a few different definitions of AI hallucinations. So this is IBM's definition. AI hallucinations are when an LLM perceives patterns or objects that are non-existent, creating nonsensical or inaccurate outputs, right? I think we all have a sort of a sense of what they are, but I want to draw attention to the idea that there's a couple things going on here. One is like, okay, it's called artificial intelligence hallucinations. So I have a problem. I have a problem with calling computers intelligent. I don't think that you can apply the term intelligence to computers or to digital technology or to what we're calling AI. And I think that's an anthropomizes computers. And just like the term hallucinations, hallucination is a human experience, but we're applying these human terms to artificial intelligence. And I think it's more like a sales tactic. You know what I mean? It's more like a sales pitch. So I think we need to be cautious a little bit about the sort of human the human descriptors that are being applied to digital technology. So Google has the definition: AI hallucinations are incorrect or misleading results that AI models generate. So there's a bunch of chat. I asked ChatGPT, okay, what is AI hallucinations? And it said it refers to a phenomenon where artificial intelligence systems generate outputs that are unexpected, nonsensical, or erroneous. These outputs can arise due to various factors. So I wanted to call out a few of the sort of like a few of the more common like ethical considerations that AI is confronting us with. The first is like Noam Chomsky has called it like a glorified plagiarism autocomplete. And I think that's where the term black box sort of comes in too. Most of these AI companies, I think there's 5 major AI companies in the United States, and most of them use this term black box to sort of skirt around the idea that we're not really sure how these results come up, or and I think that's to skirt around the idea that they've these large language models have scraped the internet of a lot of copyrighted material that they're using, that these companies are using to generate enormous profits. So they use this term black box. Oh, we're not really sure about it. I kind of don't buy into that. So anyway, for example, Wikipedia, right? In the field of artificial intelligence, a hallucination or artificial hallucination is a response generated by AI, which contains false or misleading information presented as facts. Another interesting thing, like I feel like AI and ChatGPT is opening new doors. Like if you've been following the media lately, there's been some book bans that have been going on in the United States, and librarians kind of are not. You don't become a librarian to ban books, right? So what did some of the librarians do? No one wants to have their name, no one wants to be assigned the task of figuring out, okay, which books are you going to ban and who's going to be accountable or responsible for deciding that. So what the librarians did was they asked ChatGPT to ban the books, to look at their collection and figure out which books were going to be banned. And this way it removes accountability. It removes human accountability from the process. This way you can say, oh, we didn't make up that decision. It was ChatGPT. You know what I mean? And there's also some militaries around the world are using AI to target people. So there's a lot of unethical things that go in, like the idea of water use. Like ChatGPT, I looked this statistic up. It uses 1.25 billion milliliters of water a second. That's what they use the water to cool. When they were training the LLMs, they used the water to cool the systems, the computer systems, to keep them cool. So every second, it's using enormous quantities of water to keep the computers cool and running. So there's a lot that goes into this. Like in some schools, they have AI facial recognition systems for students, and the AI facial recognition systems are identifying the students' faces, and they can identify whether the students are paying attention or whether they're kind of like daydreaming. And if the AI recognizes them as daydreaming, the teacher is immediately notified, the students notified, and then the students' parents are notified that they're daydreaming. I mean, if that was me, I would be daydreaming like 95% of the time when I was going to school. So I think it's important to have children daydream, and when they're in school, I think strictly limiting that is, I think it's sort of unethical. So anyway, these are some of the ethical considerations that I wanted to bring up in the talk. So I came up with a new definition for creativity, and I came up with another definition. These are important because a lot of discussion has to revolve around meaning and around the certain definitions and I think like the use of the term creativity in applying it to AI is, I think that's not really the right thing. So I came up with this definition of creativity: a human quality and ability in the use of imagination in the manifestation of original, useful, innovative, appropriate, beautiful, and/or meaningful ideas, especially as potential sources to address the origin of a creative endeavor. 2, a human ability in the generation of ideas that can be enhanced and developed through consistent practice. And 3, the activation of essential neural networks, including the default mode network, the salience network, and the executive attention network in the generation of innovative or artistic ideas. And then I think if you're going to talk about AI being creative, I think you need to use this word. This is a word I came up with called computivity. It's a word used to describe the algorithm-generated simulation of human creativity and artistic or creative work. So this is another term I came up with because I'm going to be using it a lot as we move forward. Just to give you a quick overview, like I'm going to go through some of these definitions, and then I'm going to show you a sort of a pedagogy that I came up with in architecture school to promote creativity. Then I have a bunch of different sort of prompts that I came up with that we're going to look at, and then at the end, maybe the last 20 minutes, I want to do a sort of interactive workshop, and we'll go on to Midjourney, and we'll put in some prompts, and I'll do a demonstration about how to do that, and how language plays a critical role in understanding the outcomes for generative AI. So this term I came up with, it can be a term or a word or like an effect. I call it the AI candy. It's AI candy effect. You could say AI candy or AI candy, because it's basically a slang term. It's something generated by artificial intelligence that is visually attractive or pleasing, but upon deeper consideration is usually considered to lack worth or merit. Artificially intelligent generations of either image or text that is superficially attractive to look at or to read. 3, an AI-generated image that is superficially appears to contain meaning and value through the appropriation of the human theory of mind. So what is that? Human theory of mind basically happens, everyone generates a theory of mind about when you're like 2 or 3 years old. And it's basically a 2 or 3-year-old child, if they see someone that's upset, they recognize that, and a small child may come and bring their favorite blanket to that person that's upset, or they may bring a piece of candy or a teddy bear for them, because they recognize that what that person is experiencing is something that they're upset, and the theory of mind is sort of that empathetic extension to understand, oh, I understand what this person's going through, because they're behaving very similar to what I do. And I think that's something that we need to consider when we think about generative AI, because you can look at the images and they're enormously impressive, the images that they come up with, generative AI, and the texts also. You can't not be impressed by them. But I think what's happening is they're appropriating the human theory of mind. So when you look at these images, the first thing you think of, because throughout history, any image or painting essentially has been done by another human being, or a poem has been done by another human being. So when you read it, you're immediately thinking like, oh, this is the work of another person. And so you have this empathetic extension into that work, this human theory of mind extending into the work. And that what it's doing, AI is appropriating the human theory of mind. So like with architecture, I call it AI candy, because you look at it and the images are gorgeous, right? But when you look more deeply at what's being designed, a lot of times it doesn't make sense. You look at the spaces that are designed, and at first it's like, wow, it's a beautiful image. And then you start to look and you're like, oh, wait, that doesn't make sense. This space could never work. It could never be built. And that's the sort of hallucination that I find valuable, because it confronts you with a situation that you would otherwise not have been confronted with. And I think that's that's a big part of the value of generative AI, is that it's sometimes these hallucinations, they put together images or texts that lead you in a new creative avenue, just like my son drawing his hand all over my drawings, Yes, and the last definition, 5, a term used to describe the artificial intelligent appropriation, intelligent appropriation of human creativity and the manifestation of images or texts. Okay, and so this is the Rorschach test. So this is basically an older test, psychological test that people would look at, and you would tell a psychologist like what you were seeing in the image. And this is kind of like what these AI generated images are doing. They're like presenting these images that superficially mirror the images that are made by human beings. But when you look more deeply at them, you realize the space doesn't work. And a lot of times the meaning that you read into the space is actually meaning that you as the viewer are projecting into the image. So this sort of draws on that also, which is this draws on the idea of AI model collapse. So in 2023, 10% of the internet content was produced by AI. That's last year. Sorry, give me 1 second. So it's this sort of metaphor of a snake eating itself. It's estimated, researchers have estimated that by 2026, 90% of internet content will be produced by AI. And so what does that mean, right? It's researchers have speculated that this could correlate to diminished critical thinking skills. And you're already seeing it in peer-reviewed journals. So in other words, when a paper is published, it's usually peer-reviewed, right, first. And a lot of the peer reviews have been studied, and they find that since 2023, critical words that are commonly used, I think that's the next, critical words that are used by artificial intelligence, by ChatGPT, like innovative, unique, have gone up dramatically since 2023 in the peer review of published work. That means a lot of researchers are asking ChatGPT to review the journals. So it's like they're calling it like it could lead to something called the dead internet theory or the AI model collapse. And this is easy to see because in some studies they had an AI generated LLM, right? So it was just an LLM that was AI generated. So more and more as the research was done, a numerous voluminous generation of images were fed into this AI model, into this LLM, and it kept feeding on itself and generating enormous quantity of images. And they kept asking it like create images of flowers. And the first couple of generations, you could see the flowers. By like the 9th or 10th generation, the LLM was so contaminated with AI generated images that it was just blobs of color. There were no more flowers anymore. So I'm gonna I'm just kind of skipping around a little bit because there's a lot of issues I want to touch on, but we will come back to some of this later. So I proposed a methodology for disclosing AI shared authorship, and this came about from discussions with my students because a lot of them were arguing about like, no, I don't need to disclose if I'm using AI because the work I'm submitting would not be submitted if I didn't initiate it. So I disagreed with that, and so I came up with a methodology for doing that. And basically, this is a quote that sort of reads into the methodology that I wanted to come up with. This is a Louis Sullivan, was a American architect. Sympathy implies exquisite vision, the power to receive as well as to give, a power to enter into communion with living and lifeless things, to enter into a unison with nature's powers and processes. Sympathy, thus understood as a power, is the beginning of understanding, for knowledge alone is not understanding. So this is basically the methodology I came up with for disclosing AI in your work. So if you're going to use it, because right now, AI is people are using AI to write chapters in books. So whole chapters, whole sections are being produced exclusively by AI. Whole books are being written just by AI. So how are researchers going to do this? I thought let me model a sort of reference template based on the APA. So it's basically I created these images in 2022 using Midjourney, and basically the prompt I put in was Louis Sullivan, drawing ornament architecture, organic, high resolution. And I repeated that 6 times. And I went through like 5 evolutions until I TFI to the final image with no other style settings. So this is just a quick outline for like how I wanted to come up with a sort of methodology for normalizing how AI is disclosed in research and in published work. And then I came up with this working model of creative pedagogy. So the following disruptive pedagogical working model is intended as a framework for architectural education that holds creativity as a desired outcome. This model is intended to inform and communicate ideas that impact creative development among students. The intended audience for this model are the teachers, students, and administrators that value creativity as an essential part of architecture and design education, recognize the creativity crisis that exists, and seek to buttress creative development among students in the face of AI's continued integration into our human cultures. So I'm going to give you a really quick understanding of how creative thinking works. So there's commonly considered to be 2 sort of creative ways of thinking. One is like divergent thinking and convergent thinking. So divergent creativity and convergent creativity. Divergent creativity is when someone says, I'm sure you've heard of this before, someone says, here's a brick, write down everything that you could possibly do with this brick. And that's a divergent thinking creativity test. That's a test where you would, how many ideas can you come up with that are innovative, appropriate, unique, and creative? So you would, it could be used as a doorstop, as a potato masher, like as something to keep my car from rolling down a hill. And then there's convergent creativity, where convergent creativity is where they give you a test where there's only one right answer. Like they may say, like they may give you 3 words, and you have to come up with the one word that unites those other 3 words. So the 3 words they could give you would be like round, tennis, and manners. And what's the one word that unites round, tennis, and manners? That word is table, because there's table manners, there's a round table, and there's table tennis. So that's a sort of way of, that's a convergent creativity test. So those are two different sort of avenues for creativity. But in the numerous studies that I researched on creativity and computer use, there was one factor that stood alone as having the greatest impact on creativity. And that is it's the first one in the top left, the promotion of deep and meaningful multicultural experiences. No other factor was found to have a greater impact on enhancing creative potential than deeply meaningful life experiences and multicultural relationships. So the rest of this, this is a sort of system that I think architectural schools should institute to sort of buttress themselves, because with declining creativity in the United States since the late 1980s, so several decades now, you have this sort of a divergent thinking void that's been digitally cultivated in the minds of generations of children now that are now adults. So one of the great things about using generative AI is that you put in a couple of prompts, and in a short amount of time, you can create hundreds of iterations of design iterations, which would normally have taken maybe months to do something like that. But in just a few hours, you can now generate enormous quantity of images that are meaningful. And viewing images also correlates to promotions of creativity. So looking at different images also increases creativity, although it provides a temporary boost in creativity, whereas deeply meaningful multicultural experiences, like living in another country for a couple of years, that correlates positively to a lifelong increase in creativity. So you will be permanently more creative if you live in another culture for some time. So I'm not going to go through all of these because there's a lot to go through, but I just wanted to put them on here. There's the design studio courses are scheduled to reflect the temporal limits of cognitive focus. So it's 20 minutes to start, then a 90-minute period of intense, like, creative focus, a 20-minute rest, and then another 90 minutes has been found to be the sort of limits of deeply creative cognitive focus. There's exceptions to that, and it's primarily with people who work with their hands. They found that, like, wood carvers or craftsmen, people who work with their hands can maintain deep focus much longer than 90 minutes. So, and that, interestingly, I just read a study the other day where they found that they studied the difference between people who type, like people who use computers all day, and people who write, like use a pen and actually write. The neural networks that are activated when you're writing script, every time you're writing a letter out, your mind is activating the language networks in your mind. So you're moving your hand to follow the shape that's in your mind. You're thinking about words that also include those letters. All these neural networks are used. And the more you use those neural networks, that also positively correlates to increased creativity. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see all of these images have also been created with generative AI, and they're stunning images, right? It's like beautiful interiors, beautiful exteriors, beautiful landscapes. Like, okay, so a couple more terms. Promptect, right? Promptect. They have prompt engineering, but I think with architecture, a promptect is an architect that crafts prompts for use with generative artificial intelligence with the intention of instilling meaning into the images produced. And then promptecture, which is basically images generated by artificial intelligence from a combination of large language models, data, and prompt inputs for the purpose of depicting buildings and spaces as a substitute for divergent thinking. Quickly, we're moving now into the idea of language. And so one study I wanted to point out was throughout history, there's a similarity around the world for the words that correlate to colors. So almost universally, all languages have black and white as one of the founding words of the languages. Then mostly red, and then yellow. But the last word in every language that corresponds to a color is the word blue. So why is that? It's kind of interesting. People couldn't see blue until there was a word for it. And then once there was a word for it, then people could see it, because language crafts experience. So I pulled together this sort of bell curve, and I put together, like, when you're writing prompts for generative AI, there are very common words that are used to describe light. So what I did was I went to ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, after looking at like a bunch of prompts, spending a lot of time looking at prompts on different generative AI software, people would use light, and they would, a lot of times they would use common words like fluorescent, incandescent, ambient, direct, indirect. But I had this theory, like, you know, so many people are using these terms to describe light. I think if you want to have more control, more nuanced control, I wonder if I could use terms that not only describe light, but describe the human reaction or the human experience of light. And one of those terms you can see on, all the way on the left, number one down here, is the term apricity. And apricity, for those of you that may not know, apricity is the feeling of warm sunlight in winter. And so I started putting that term into my prompts, and I started getting like much better images, I thought. So I kind of broke up this bell curve between like the first 50 words in the middle. Those are very common. And then the next 50 words are bracketing those, and those are a little rarer. And then the sort of 20 all the way on the outside are sort of rare words that describe light that you can put in your prompts. And these are some of the meanings of those words. Talking also, just jumping back to the idea of ethics in AI, this is basically what I was talking about earlier. Adjectives associated with AI-generated text have increased in peer-reviewed journals, peer reviews of scientific papers about AI. Innovative, notable, commendable, intricate. Since 2023, all of these terms have shot up, and those are terms that are AI sort of generated, correlate with AI-generated text. And then they did a test of the political disposition of Facebook's a chat generator, ChatGPT, OpenAI, and you can also create these things called black market LLMs or gray market LLMs. And basically, you can craft a large language model to have a certain disposition. So you could depolarize GPT, or you can create a right-wing GPT or a left-wing GPT. So these systems are subjected to manipulation, and I think that's part of the problem. So these are some of the prompt examples I wanted to talk to you about. So each of these images correlates to the prompt that's next to it. So these are some of the earlier ones I did. A weekend house made of wood and corten steel in a forest with pine trees and a feeling of apricity, cinematic, glowing, satin dappled, hyper detailed, hyper resolution, beautiful, serene, sublime, and the style of, and these are some architects whose work I admire, Lucan, Alvar Aalto, Carlos Scarpa. And sometimes it's easy to see the influence that these architects are playing, how the LLM is sort of drawing off their work to create the image. So this next image is one of the things I want to do in the workshop, which is I have some sketches. And what I did was I basically uploaded a sketch into Midjourney, and I typed in this prompt, the interior lobby of a high-end residential building. So a friend of mine had asked some years ago when I was living in New York City for me to come up with some sketches for the lobby of a building in New York City, residential building. And so I did some sketches. So I had some of them. So I was like, they were laying around. So I was like, let me take a picture of them. I'll feed them into Midjourney, and I'll see what comes up. So I wrote interior lobby of a high-end residential building, walnut wood interior walls, plaster ceiling, recessed lighting, wall washer lighting with the feeling of apricity. That's like a personal favorite of mine, in the style of Alvar Aalto and Lucan. And this is the image that came up. So I played with these quite a bit, and just changing the sort of aspect ratio so you get a different feeling for it. And this is when I started to realize, like, oh, wait, there's a lot of mistakes here, like things that could never happen. And we may see it later. You can see it a little bit here, but we'll see it later when we do the demonstration. So like in this image in the top right, you can see it's a, yeah, in the field, pine trees in winter. So I put the term in winter here in prompt number 4. So you can see that the Midjourney put snow on the ground, but then it also put snow in the house, and it put a tree with snow on it in the house, like right by the front door. And it's kind of hard to see from this image, but I use the term béton brut in here somewhere, probably. Yeah, here it is. Béton brut concrete. So that's a board formed concrete. And they have through ties, which are part of the concrete board formwork in architecture whenever you're using concrete. But you don't need it for a horizontal slab. You need it for vertical slabs because those through ties keep the formwork from splitting apart when the concrete is poured in. So it's just I can see that this AI is crafting this work but it doesn't understand. It's not understanding what it's doing, you know. And even down here, the images are kind of small, but I have other images we can look at. But yeah, you can see how the AI is playing with different images and how this prompts sort of correlate to. You can change the aspect ratio when you put in a prompt to give you a different dimension. We'll play with that a little bit in about 10 minutes or so. Yeah, so this was one of the images I wanted to focus on as holding a mistake, right? I mean, they all have mistakes. So I'm looking at this image now. So just a few years ago, before the advent of generative AI, it would have taken me an enormous amount of time to make up image like this. I would have had to design the space, right? I would have had to apply the materials. I would have had to render the light, done all the detailing, done the interior lighting, done the atmospheric lighting. It would have taken an enormous amount of time. But I created this image in like 20 seconds, 30 seconds with AI. And one of the things that this leads to is a term that I created called the democratization. One of the great things that I think it contributes, that AI contributes to architecture as a profession, is it empowers an individual to create an enormous number of iterations of designs. So you can play with these. You can select areas for the generative AI to redesign. You can do sketches, upload the sketches into the generative AI, see the images that are produced. So you can produce 500 images in a day. You can meet with a client, produce enormous number of images, meet with them a week later, and have 500 images that they can go through. So in that way, it's promoting sort of sustainability in the practice of AI. And I call it the democratization of architecture. It can lead, in some sense, to the democratization of architecture, because prior to this, only really big architecture firms had the power, had the personnel to produce enormous iterations in such a short amount of time. But now a single person like myself can generate enormous number of images and meet with a client rapidly in a short amount of time and start work quicker. So it leads to shorter timelines of construction. But I wanted to point out as one of the mistakes here. So, and this is where the sort of from hallucinations to hallelujah comes in, which is this tree right here. It's kind of interesting because it's if you see in the background, there's a tree in the foreground and there's a similar tree in the background, and it's clearly, if you look up here, it's outside of the house, but it's also it's lined up perfectly with the sort of this mullion, this window mullion at the bottom. So these errors, these computational errors, are littered in the generations of AI. So these are the sort of 10 principles that I wanted to go over. One is hallucinations. So what are they? Identify machine hallucinations, and we just looked at one. It's just the computational errors. It's the things that it does. And so this is important because this also correlates to increased creativity. There's something called juxtapositional analysis. So and this correlates to increases in creativity. And this also relates to deeply meaningful multicultural experiences and how that correlates to increased creativity. When you look at two things that are not normally put together, you're juxtaposing meanings, and that creates a new, they're using the term, they want to use the term hallucinations, and that's fine. It's like what did Noam Chomsky say recently? He said, in discussing a generative AI, he said, I suppose it's possible that someone will conceive of constructive purposes for this. And so that's what I've sought out to do. I've sought out to, what are the constructive purposes? How can we take these hallucinations and make something meaningful in them? I saw a challenge in what Chomsky said, and that's what I tried to lay out here. So this unexpected juxtapositional relationship. So when you identify it, you then have to understand the meaning. Okay, what does it mean? And this is where the questions come in. And this is where questions come in, where you start questioning the meaning. Like, okay, this relationship is unusual. What is the meaning there? What does it mean? How can this create a new kind of space? What does it mean to put these materials together? There's no wall here. How could that work? So it's this whole avenue of inquiry, which is a very great tool. Nothing is so valuable as an accident at certain times. And then there's semantic fluency, So it's like the color blue that I talked about earlier. The color blue, no one could really experience blue or see it until it had a name. So that's why I propose like expanded semantic fluency in the description of terms of light. And the more ways that you can understand light, and how light interacts with space and architecture, that will correlate to increases in creativity. Okay, just like people couldn't see blue until there was a word for blue. And then once there was a word for it, then you can see it and you can identify it anywhere, everywhere, because language helps to craft our experience, right? Creative sustainability, utilize AI for the sustainability of creative endeavor. I just talked about that a little bit, about how like it leads to the democratization in some sense of design profession, because a single person can produce the work of 100 people. Like I could work in one day and produce 500 iterations of a certain design, and which otherwise would have taken scores of people working months to model and design that stuff. Creative methods, writing versus typing. I talked about that earlier. So cultivating creative methods, meaningful multicultural experiences. These are things that people should practice to maintain the expansion of neural networks. The more you use the creative networks in your mind, the stronger they get, the more fluid they work. So writing versus typing, right? Writing, I talked about that earlier. It activates the neural networks in your mind that correlate to expanded creativity. Quantity yields quality. That's another thing. With this AI, the generative AI gives you this enormous power to generate like scores of iterations, right? Voluminous myriad pullulations of computative iteration, I call it, because it's just an enormous, you can do enormous amount of work. And studies have shown that quantity yields quality in creative endeavor. The more things you work on, the more iterations you go through, at the end, it yields a higher quality result. Developing critical consciousness. This means understanding, right? Understanding the inherent biases and limitations, acknowledging ethical concerns. Be critical about how you use generative AI and understand, just like the way the museums that I spoke about earlier, just how those museums, some of them are continuing to perpetuate subjugation by placing African art in the basement or in a darker, lower space, and European art on a higher floor with huge spaces and skylights and brightly lit spaces. Avenues of creativity, 9. Understand AI is an avenue for expanded actual intelligence, okay? And 10, cultivate a spirit of play. And that's the hallelujah part. Writing versus typing, meaningful multicultural experiences. You wanna like give yourself 2 gifts, the gift of space and the gift of time, and you wanna remove the barriers of fear. And that's kind of what AI is giving you, because it allows you to create enormous number of iterations for a design. And it's a sustainable process because there's very little material and time that's invested to produce those, okay? This is a quote by Lou Sullivan. I think I might skip this because we have about 25 minutes left. There's still some stuff I want to get through, but this is a great quote by Lou Sullivan. I'm not going to read it now, but and this is what I mean. Like, this is just a sample of some of the iterations that I got when I was playing, changing subtle words, changing the parameters of the descriptors. So this is an example I wanted to spend a minute on. This is what I was talking about earlier, where my friend, I did this sketch here in the middle. It was just a yellow trace paper sketch, a 6B pencil, and just, okay, maybe I was envisioning what this lobby of a residential building in New York City might look like. And this is one of the sketches I had. And working on this, some of this paper I had published last summer, I took it out and I started playing with it with Midjourney. And this was the prompt that I wrote. Interior lobby of a high-end residential building, walnut wood interior walls, plaster ceiling, recessed lighting, wall washer lighting with a feeling of apricity, that's a personal favorite of mine, in the style of Alvar Aalto and Lucan. So the first time I put it in, basically this prompt, this is one of the iterations it yielded. And when I look at this image, I can read the image and I can say, oh, this ceiling here, the curvature in the ceiling, that's from Alvar Aalto. And this travertine wall in the back, oh, that's Lucan. That's Lucan's source. So I can read the images that the AI creates, and I can see where it's drawing certain sources. But I forgot to put trace paper, the sketch in. So then once I added the sketch in, it yielded this other image on all the way on the right. And one of the things I found really interesting was like, if you look at the sketch here, you can see this, it's pinned up to my wall. And you can see there's some wrinkles in the paper. And one of the unexpected things that the Midjourney did was it sort of did something interesting with the walls that I would not have thought to do, which is like, you see these sort of wrinkled, padded, like wrinkled fabric walls. And it's copying this sort of, it's picking up the trace wrinkles in the trace paper on the walls. So yeah, this is a large image. This curve I can see in alto, this travertine sort of marble wall. The pattern of this looks like a concrete facade wall here, but that pattern in the wall. This furniture here could be Alvar Aalto style. The light, these lights definitely are Alvar Aalto. The furniture maybe. There's the sketch. And these are some of the iterations that it went through. Some of them were very interesting. You know what I mean? This is what I mean about how it took the trace paper on the wall and it did something unexpected. And that's the sort of hallucination that becomes a hallelujah for me. You know what I mean? Here it did something, it took the sketch and it made this sort of giant sketch and put it up on the wall, which I thought was, it's amusing, but it actually makes for a pleasing piece of art, you know. Some other sketches. So this is another, I'm going to just go through these quickly. I want to spend the last like 20 minutes doing a Midjourney demonstration. So we're almost there. Again, if you have any questions, just stop me and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So when I read these spaces, I'm not looking at the chat right now, so I can't see if you're asking questions in the chat. So if you just unmic yourself if you have a question, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So when I looked at this image, this is an interior of a weekend house. I was doing some research for a weekend house, and I was, okay, let me do a weekend house study. And you can see some of it puts a desk up here, right? Now, there's no way to get there, right? These window mullions are on the inside of they separate inside from outside, and this desk is on the outside of that. So there's sort of no way to get here. So it creates this, that's what I was talking about earlier, the juxtapositional, the unusual and unexpected sort of juxtapositional analysis that I have to do. Like, oh, what does that mean? What kind of space could that be? Why would such a space like that exist? Like, so these are the questions that can lead to this sort of expanded creativity. This is another example you can do. This is the same space, but you can pick sections in Midjourney. You can pick sections for Midjourney to redo. So if you like some portion of a rendering, I picked this sort of left-hand section, and you can see how the left-hand section of this image is different in every one. And you can see here the stairs. I noticed this is a pattern with Midjourney. You see the stairs here kind of don't make sense. And they kind of don't make sense in the same way that like the fingers on hands don't make sense in AI. And that's because the AI doesn't understand how a hand works. It just knows that there's a bunch of digits, there's a bunch of fingers. And it's just like AI doesn't know how stairs work. So it just knows that there's a bunch of, it just has these images, statistical images that show that there are these like steps lined up in a certain way. So it just puts them in there. So there's some things that it's very good at, some things it's not good at. Like in this prompt, I put in for this prompt, a weekend house made of wood and corten steel in a forest with pine trees, a feeling of apricity, cinematic, glowing, satin dappled, hyper-detailed, hyper-resolution, beautiful, serene, sublime, in the style of Lou Kahn, Alvar Aalto, Carlo Scarpa, and Bridget Shim. Bridget Shim is a brilliant Toronto architect who I think she did a house called the Integral House just in Toronto. I think it's one of the best houses of the 21st century. So when I look at this image, I can read the image and I can say, oh, this ceiling, this roof line here, that's from Carlos Scarpa's Venezuelan pavilion at the Venice Biennale. And these columns, this concentration of columns, that's Alvar Aalto's house. And this Bridget Shim's, this corten steel here, that's hers. And maybe this is Alvar Aalto interior also. So I can see the way it's getting stitched together. Here's some more. I just want to be mindful of the time. We're at 7 o'clock. So we have about 20 minutes left. You can see how, I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry to cut you off. I have a
question.
No,
please. Yeah.
By the way, it's such a great presentation. I'm learning so much. My name is Geeta. My name is Geeta, and I'm a student in Northeastern doing my master's in project management.
Oh, great.
I'm also, I'm doing also a concentration in construction management.
Oh,
I just have
awesome.
a quick question.
Yeah,
This is such a great image, and the prompt the previous slide, the
yeah,
prompt was also so, like specific. I'm just thinking out loud, like from
yeah,
watching your presentation, we usually hire like 3D visualizers in companies, to do
yeah,
these renderings, create
yeah,
these, Revit models, and, we do
yeah,
several iterations. So
yeah,
now I think that it will be replaced by
yeah.
Promptitex,
Yeah,
as you
prompt text.
said,
Yeah, yeah,
Promptitex.
that's right.
What do you think about that?
That's I have a lot of thoughts about that. That feeds into part of the problem of sustainability. Like one of the reasons I became a teacher, a professor, is like I I was I wanted to be a graduate student, and I went to school for architecture, and I wanted to be a teaching assistant. So I became a teaching assistant, and I was like, wow, teaching is amazing. It's so great to help people advance in the direction of their dreams. Like it's so great. It's so empowering to help people. It's such a rewarding way to spend your life. Like I want to do this forever, you know. And right now, several schools are replacing teaching assistants with AI, with chatbots. And in some ways, that's good for the students because they're available 24 hours. It's some law schools have done this. Um, but you have to think sustainably about a profession. And if you start replacing teaching assistants with AI, you're cutting off the upstream flow of educational progress. And so, yeah, these are great questions, and there's something to consider. I don't have an answer. I wish I did. I don't have an answer yet. I'm deeply concerned about it. I think one of the ways could be that I think for teaching, I think teachers have to be part of a strong union, and I think
Mm,
it's like what the actors and writers did in Hollywood.
yeah, that's right.
That's I think the next step. I think people have to form a strong union, and you have to make for sustainable. It's like what Luke Kahn said: the institutions live in the spaces. Like you have to
Mm,
build a sustainable human institutions, and you can't
true.
let like greed and the lust for profit undermine the sort of sustainability of human culture. And I think that's a critical concern that we have to bear in
I
mind.
think also I think also in terms of education, like it would be amazing that as part of the education, they bring about like in the syllabus language, and how like so
Yes.
maybe like from 3D visualizers, like from learning how to render images, you can learn
Yeah.
how to do prompt engineering, like for architects, like exactly like
Yeah.
what you said. That would
Yeah.
be
So
so valuable for us.
yeah, one of the things I did was I actually used ChatGPT. I went to ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, look in historical architectural texts and give me a list of like 50 words that describe the interaction of light and space. And so I usually, like when I work, I have files open up, Word files where and ChatGPT opened up, and I'll ask for like specific questions. Oh, I need a word for this. Let me try to find a word that's rarely used. This way, I'm not drawing into that dead internet theory, that snake that's eating itself, with people you keep using the same words over and over again. So that expanded semantic knowledge, it's called domain-specific knowledge. If you have expanded domain-specific knowledge, that correlates positively to expanded creativity. So that it's like the color blue. People in history couldn't see it until there was a word for it. So that correlates to creativity. Okay. Let me just see where I am here. Okay. So yeah, this is I'm going to go through this quick. Maybe we'll save the last 10 minutes. It's 7:04. We got 15 minutes. I'll save the last 10 minutes for the demonstration. We'll do that quick. Um, but again, these are some images. Here you can see it's quite beautiful, but they put this interior, they put a Christmas tree, not a Christmas tree, like a pine tree inside the house. Like, is that possible? Like, it's this unexpected. It's like every time I see this, I think in a beautiful way of my son Owen drawing his hand on all of my sketches and ideas. And I think, oh my God, it's a valuable thing because it puts together, it leads you down this new creative avenue of inquiry. And then here you can see like this AI is not really understanding how tables work. First of all, the legs of this table are not symmetrically placed. And then it doesn't have legs on the other side of the table because there's no corresponding shadow that would be cast from the sun. right? And you would even be able to see some of these legs, the bottom part of these legs for the table come down. So you can see how it's sort of pasting images. Another thing is at the bottom over here, this column is square. As you go up, when it gets to the top, it's rounded. So there's like, there's these problems that occur. Here, the problem with this space, beautiful space, right? But when you look at it, there's no circulation space. There's no space for people to move about. Like this edge of this couch goes up to this edge of this bookshelf, right? There's a little bit of a hallway here, but then it bumps into this big column that juts out from this window back up against the couch. So there's no circulation space. This is a problem that's pretty consistent. Same thing here, very tight spaces. You can see how it's not thinking. Here there's virtually no space to get from one end of this room to the other. And there's other problems here, like, but I'll just go through it quickly. Here, this enormous volume, it looks like concrete to me, this cantilevered volume of space. But these are all, I see these as valuable. They're hallucinations, but for me, it's a hallelujah moment because I see this and I'm like, oh, well, what is that? How could that work? How could I make that work? What would that mean if a space like that existed, right? Here again, it has a problem with stairs. No two steps are the same here. One step is bigger than no two steps are the same size. The stairs brings you up to a window. It doesn't lead you through the house. So you can see how these computational errors. Here, again, there's no way to get from this room up to the other. I mean, if I was a kid, I would probably love this because I'd have to climb over all of this or run down and jump down here. But I'm not a kid anymore, and it would be really hard. It would be really hard to like climb up this bookshelf and then climb into the other part of the house. But for me, it's a beautiful moment. It's a hallelujah moment because I get to look at it and say like, oh, what would that mean? What does it mean to have a spatial barrier like that? What kind of space would that be? And it's that spark of like considering something I had never considered before, which leads me from the avenues of hallucination to sort of destinations of hallelujah, you know. And then this is just I asked ChatGPT to write some prose about human creativity. I'm not going to read this because I want to get to the, but I'll leave it up here. I want to get to the demonstration. We have about 12 minutes left. I think that could be it. Yeah, that's it. All right, cool. So let me go to, give me a second here. I got to find where I had that open. I think is it here? No, give me 1 second. I got to find where I had it. Here it is. Let's go quickly to Midjourney. All right, so I'm going to walk you through like how, let me refresh the page. Let me walk you through how I did, how I uploaded the sketch. So you get to see that. That's a useful thing to do, useful thing to use. So the first thing you're going to do, I'm going to upload a sketch, and then we're going to, together we'll find a prompt, and we'll make something. We'll make some space together, okay? So let's upload it. So you go, this is Midjourney. This is the Midjourney page. I'm not going to go through the steps about how to do that. You can just watch a YouTube channel about that. But the first thing you do when you want to upload an image is click on the plus, upload a file. It's going to take me to lobby sketch. So this is the sketch, right? And then I want to hit upload. When the image uploads, you want to hit return, and then it will upload the sketch, okay? Okay, so you click on the sketch. It brings you to this page. You want to open it in the browser, right? Once the browser opens, you want to copy the link, right? Once the link is copied, go back to the Midjourney page, right? Now let's craft a prompt, right? So you're going to hit backslash, and you're going to go up to imagine, right? And then you're going to paste the website that links you to this image, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump to, I set up a Microsoft Word document before my talk, because I wanted to sort of save some time. So these are some of the prompts that I had used. This is the original one I used. Why don't we try this one? Interior lobby of a high-end residence, and it gives you an aspect ratio. I'm just going to copy this. These are the prompts that I had used previously, and I'm going to paste it here, and let's run it and see what happens. So it takes about 30 seconds. It's waiting to start right now. So a lot of these other images that are coming up, this is a public server for Midjourney. So you can, another thing I do is I keep a Microsoft Word document open. I'll jump to that really quick. And if I see, I have a file called AI prompts. So if I see a good prompt that someone else did, I may copy it and then play with it. If they used words that I'm not familiar with, and this is, you can see here, this is like where I asked ChatGPT, I need 100 rare words that describe the human reaction to different kinds of light. So part of the hallucination is that some of these words are not real words. So that's part of the problem with using AI. But right, so it's still, Midjourney is still it's 35% done. So soon we will have our first images. So you can see at the end of the prompt here, you see this, our images are coming up now. You can see at the end of the prompt, there's 2 dashes, and then there's the letter I and then the letter W. And that means image weight. And I have the number 0.5. So what I'm telling Midjourney is the range, where did that go? The range for the image weight is from 0.5 to 2. So we'll do the same prompt, and we'll put the image weight of 2, and we'll see the difference. So you get a sense of that. So this 0.5 is the lowest that that you can weight an image or a sketch that you put into your prompt. 2 is the greatest. So let's look at some of these images that it came up with. Click on it. You can open it in a browser, separate page, and you zoom in. So this is some of the interior imagery that's coming up, right? Okay, these are interior of a lobby. That's fine. Minimize, go back. And then I'm not really crazy about any of these, but if I wanted to play with them, you can see these buttons down below, and it goes clockwise from the top left. So number 1, number 2, I'm sorry, it doesn't go clockwise. It goes across the top and then from left to right, and then across the bottom from left to right. So top left is number 1, top right is number 2, lower left is number 3, lower right is number 4. So U is upscale. So if you want to upscale it, say I wanted to upscale, like let's do number 3, and let's do number 4. So that's going to create a higher quality image. And if I really liked, say, number 4, I could do variations of 4. And that's, you can vary 1, 2, 3, 4. I can do variations. And then if you scroll down a little bit, now it's giving me the upscaled versions, right? So let's say, okay, I like this one. I wanna zoom out. Let's zoom out 2 times. So we'll zoom out a little bit, and then I want to vary part of it. I like this, but I don't like this wall over here. So let's vary a region. It's going to give us this region, and we're just going to, it says drag to select the area to be changed. So I'm going to change this area here, right? I'm not crazy about this. Ready? When you're ready, edit the prompt. Okay, let's do that. So now it's going to look at this, and it's going to vary this region. It's going to regenerate, but it's going to give us some variation in this region. So let's scroll down a little more. Here's another version. This is the other version that we upscaled. I can do the same thing with that. It should be generating some additional versions. Yeah, so these are the variations of the 2 that I picked, right? And when you upscale it, or when you close, this is a strong variation. So these are the variations. You click on it, you can look and you can see, like, okay, let's open this in the browser. It gives us a little bit more clear view. And again, if we look at the prompt that I picked, it was just interior lobby, high-end residential building, right? So let's do the sketch with a different image weight, okay? So we'll do that again, and then, yeah, so this looks like the variations of a region. Yeah, so this is the same prompt, but it's variations of a region. So if we click on this, I selected this sort of left-hand area. It doesn't look like it did too much. It changed a little bit of the pattern on the wall, but it didn't really do too much. That's okay. Any questions right now? Does anyone want to say anything? I know we have like 5 minutes left. Anyone?
Hi, William.
Hi, how's everything?
Good. So I was just curious. So by any chance, have you subscribed to the Midjourney, or
I do, yeah.
You have,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that's
you're
part
not
of
an alpha test user.
No, that's part of, no, that's, yeah, I've subscribed because as you know, I'm fascinated with this, and I feel like I have to know about it, and that's part of the sustainability problem, because now it's like you're creating barrier, like Midjourney is basically becoming a gatekeeper of knowledge,
Yeah.
right? And it's like limiting only people that have money to, not that I have a lot of money, even though my name is Bill Gates. Okay?
Yeah.
But now it's becoming a gatekeeper of knowledge. And that's
Right.
when you have to consider the ethical dimensions of this. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that's something to consider. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a great point. You know what I mean? I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So have you tried ideogram as well, in contrast with Midjourney by any chance?
I've tried a few. I don't think I've tried that one. I have tried Dolly. I've tried
DALL-E,
Midjourney.
yeah.
Yeah, I've tried I forget a couple others, but that one doesn't sound too familiar to me.
Okay, all right.
So what do we got? We got a few minutes left. Any other questions? I'm happy to take any questions. No. Okay. So let's do. Want to do one? You guys want to do one more prompt, and then we can do the image again, right? Let's upload the file, and then we'll even though it's a lobby sketch, let's use it for a weekend house. Okay. We'll see if that works. So I'll just upload. I could probably scroll back and go to the same image and copy it, but we'll just upload it again. And I think the images that you upload have to be less than 8 megabytes. So just be mindful of that. Let's click here. You got to open it in the browser. Copy this. Let's go back here. Scroll down. Sorry, I know I went fast through a lot of sections, but I will have the slideshow available. Oops, no, we're going to do backslash. Imagine. Let's copy the website. Now let's go. We'll pick a different. These are some of the. Oh, let's try this one. Bridget Chim, Anna Herringer. They're great. They're great architects. Sustainably designed weekend house made of sustainably sourced wood, rammed earth. So we'll have to add the image weight to this, but we'll image weight it 2.0. Let's do that. Let's go here. Space. This. I want to add an aspect ratio. We're not going to use variations. We're going to use image weight, and we're going to go 2, and then we're going to go dash dash. We're going to go aspect ratio. Let's do 19 by 6. Is that what I want to do? I think so. Let's see if that works. All right, so this could be our last prompt, but thank you for bearing with me and in this talk. Like, I know I was kind of like touching on a lot of different things, but I wanted to try to tie together so many ideas so that it would sort of meaning would come through in the end, and I hope that has happened. Okay, let's see. I'm curious about this. So I changed the image weight to 2 here. So that means it's going to value the sketch. Oh, wow. You can see the difference. Okay, so let's take a look at this. You can see that the image weight, you can see earlier when it was 0.5, right? Where was that? That was up here somewhere. 0.5, it was like, didn't really take too much. Took a little bit from the sketch. But when you have the image weight at 2, that means if you had like the image on one end of the scale and the prompt on the other end, a value image weight of 2 is going to really put a lot of weight on the sketch. So these are also seem quite nice, actually. So let's take a look at them. Okay. Wow. Let's zoom in here. They're kind of beautiful. Yeah, as a sketch, it's kind of really nice. So you can read the way it's picking up the wrinkles in the paper, the yellow of the paper, even though the quality of the paper is different. Yeah, so it's much less of a, it's more of a drawing of a weekend house, right? Than it is a model of the weekend house, right? Anyway, that's all I have. So I'll be around. I'm gonna come off the screen share, stop sharing, and I'll stick around until the last person logs off. If there's any questions, I'm happy to stick around and continue to talk to you. I know we're right at 7:20 right now, but thank you for sharing this time with me. It's my pleasure. Thank you. I'll be here until the last person logs off if anyone wants to talk. Thank you. How can I?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Really,
you.
it was such a insightful discussion. Really, like I really felt like I was back in architecture school. So
Yeah,
I really miss it. Really miss it.
yeah. I love. Yeah, that's why I loved architecture school too. That's why one of the reasons I like to teach it.
Yeah, and when I started working, I stopped really being a student. I stopped being really an architect, and I got into like project management, and and that involves a lot of creativity. And yes, I
Yeah,
do like a lot of designing and things like that. But I really miss like
I
being
know.
so free. And
Yeah,
one of the things that really resonated with me is in the beginning of the conversation, said something about don't be afraid to make mistakes.
yeah, yeah,
In fact, one of my favorite professors, like very inspiring professor, that's the first thing he told me
yeah,
when I was in school. He's like, first
yeah.
make the mistake and then say sorry.
Yes,
And
yeah.
and
That's it.
I was
Yeah,
like, yeah, man, that's so true. That's so
yeah.
true.
It's
Definitely.
it's. I'm still afraid. Like I still get afraid all the time, but you got to just do it. You know what I mean? You got to just do it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was really lovely talking to you and
Thank
meeting
you.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Hello, Professor.
Oh, hi. How's everything?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much. I really loved this. Honestly, this was by far my favorite session. I attended all the 3 days, and this was my favorite. And what I found interesting is that you said that you took your bachelor's in psychology. I mean,
Philosophy.
sorry, philosophy. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
philosophy, and I honestly see how like you tied everything together as
Cool.
a
Thank
yeah
you.
in a,
Thank
in
you.
a that's something a person who did philosophy would do. So I genuinely appreciate that because
you.
I myself I'm very interested in philosophy.
Oh,
So
that's great.
I did civil engineering as my bachelor's,
Awesome. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
and now I'm doing project management. And
Oh, great.
hopefully in the future when everything is settled, I want to do my second master's in philosophy just because out of love, like um. So yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank
Genuinely,
you. That's really great. That's really great.
yeah.
I wish you luck.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn if that's
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. Yeah, you can look me up. Just William Gates, and
William Gates.
I work at the Boston Architectural College, and yeah, that's fine.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor. I
No,
would
thank
like
you.
hopefully one day if I come to I live in Seattle, so hopefully one
Okay,
day
yeah.
if I come to Boston, I would love to
I spent a
have a
summer
talk
in
with you.
Seattle when I was
Yes.
younger. It was beautiful.
Oh,
I loved it.
nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful
Uh,
there.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. All right, take care. Bye.
Hey, William. Hey.
Hi, how's everything?
Good, good. So, as I was previously mentioning about ideogram, so maybe if you could share a few prompts by any
Sure.
chance which you
Yeah,
have
yeah, for
tried.
sure. Yeah, sure. I'll go. Hold on, let me go to the. Yeah,
And
so here.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I know I just wanted to, go ahead and try the same prompts on ideogram. I've heard
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Oh,
quite
cool.
crisp.
Yeah, that's
So I
cool. I
just
like
wanted
that
to
idea.
compare the results on Midjourney and ideogram and how they come up.
You may have to edit them a little bit because I'm not familiar with the format for
I
those.
will.
Yeah, but the text prompts. I'll copy this page maybe.
Right.
Um,
And you were saying you're a professor at Boston Architectural College.
Yes. Yeah.
So maybe if at all you are available someday, if we could catch up, because I myself am an architect as well, like many others who are here.
Oh, cool. Okay,
And
great.
I have my interests in mostly the AI part of architecture, and I have my
Okay.
own startup which I'm coming up with. So I was
Awesome.
thinking of catching up once, say
That would be
anytime.
great. I would love that. So you're in the Boston area?
Yeah, I'm in Northeastern University, Boston. Currently, I'm in Michigan right now, but
Oh, Michigan. Okay.
like I have a break going on for a week, but I'll be
Oh,
back
cool.
there by Monday.
Awesome. That sounds great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just copied in the chat that page of
Oh,
chat,
perfect.
prompt examples. So yeah, I would just be careful because I don't know how that works. The text part is probably fine, and you've been able to see some of the images, and the slideshow will be made available.
Oh, all right. All
Yes,
right. Yeah.
I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but they told me that they would make it available. So
All right. I'll keep an eye out for it, and I guess I'll just drop you a connection request over LinkedIn, and maybe we could talk over there about catching up someday.
that would be awesome. I'd love that.
Yep. Thank you.
Take
Have a
care,
good
man.
day.
Be good.
You too.
Hi, are you there? Is this Elliot? Excuse me. Excuse me. Hey, Shauna. Oh, I got you. I'm going to stop the chat right now. Sean, I'll hang out here for a second in case you want to talk.
My gosh.
Hey, Shauna, how's everything? I was hanging out to see if you were going to come back. How you doing?
Good. How are you? I'm back. You can probably hear my dog groaning next to me.
That's okay.
I'm back. I'm
I
checking
feel
in.
good. I feel good
How'd it
about
go?
it. I feel really good about it. I got some really good feedback from the people that participated, and I made it through everything. I was able to do the demonstration. I saved like the last 15 minutes, so I was able to get onto Midjourney and we generated some images as a class. And I feel really positive about it. So
Awesome.
yeah, I feel like I was worried because
Energized.
I've been sick for the past few days. Like I had like really bad sore throat, but I've been drinking tea all day.
Yeah.
And about 20 minutes into it, I started to get worried because I was like having trouble. But then it was okay. Like I started drinking some coffee, and that gave me some energy, and it kept going. So,
Good.
I had a question for you.
Sure.
I participated in three talks, like
Mhm.
2 on the first day and then 1 yesterday.
Mhm.
But the evaluations, I can only do 1 evaluation per day for the badge, for the AI badge or something.
That
So,
we saw that someone else did that. It's not, you're supposed to be able to go to do multiple per day. So
yeah.
I actually sent a message to our Canvas folks
Okay.
about that today. How about I blast a message out tomorrow? I actually don't know where that landed today because it's been such a whirlwind, but
Yeah, no worries. This
I
was
know you're
awesome.
not the only person
Yeah.
that encountered that. So
Okay.
we will make sure that we get to the bottom of it.
I mean, maybe I could fill out a review for my talk just to fill in the blank. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you definitely could, but I think, if you send me the names of them also that you
Okay.
attended
Yeah.
in an email, I want to troubleshoot it so nobody else has that issue, but
Okay.
I also want to help you with your situation.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I feel really. I was so nervous before, but I had been preparing for a long time. Like I had my slideshow. I've been working on it every day for hours and hours and hours, trying to get it all done. And I had
Yeah.
a file set up before the talk, and I was able to get through a lot of like ideas that I was hoping I could get through. And then I feel positive, and the students seemed to receive it well. So yeah.
You had a great showing.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Of course. It looks like we have someone with a question.
Yeah, how's everything?
Hi, it's going good. Sorry, I had dropped off, but then I recollected that I had a question in mind which I had completely forgotten about. So you were mentioning a few things like in particular prompts which you had given up to Midjourney.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the hallucination parts of those images which were generated, in which, say for example, the anthropometry was not taken into consideration, or the ergonomics of particular things were not taken into consideration.
Yeah.
So I was just curious, what if my prompt itself had it included that, say for example, okay, you need to consider anthropometry and ergonomics in it as well. Does it still create certain hallucinations?
No, yeah, it does. It still creates them. It doesn't. And I got this also from other AI researchers. I gave a talk at the University of Liverpool on AI and architectural education, and there was a famous researcher from Chicago. I forget his name right now, but he wrote a book on machine hallucinations, and he used Midjourney in an architectural design competition, and for the master plan for this campus, and he's much better at working with Midjourney than I, and he said that Midjourney, the AI doesn't correlate interior space to the facade. So it's just the AI will create just a facade, but there's no meaning. And that's part of the problem. Like historically, the design of architecture evolves organically from understanding what the meaning of the space is. Like if it's a library or if it's a home, or like there's certain thinking that goes into how those spaces are
concept that goes
structured.
behind it.
Yes, but AI doesn't do that. It just you could tell it, oh, I need a campus, and it will look at it will do like the statistical. It will run through the statistical algorithm and pull out all these images of campuses and stitch them together according to how you've crafted the prompt, and weigh certain things. But there'll be no correlation. So what he said is they got what the campus looked like, and then they had to make it work. And that's another issue that comes into that I had wanted to talk about in the talk, but I didn't get to it, which was there's a sustainable architectural practice. I'm sure you know it. It's called adaptive reuse.
Yeah.
Adaptive reuse is like, it's sustainable because it doesn't call for the construction of a new building. It calls for adaptively reusing an existing building. So it's sustainable.
Reconfiguring the existing buildings.
So in that sense, using generative AI to design a space, it's sort of cultivating this thinking of adaptive reuse, where okay, you have an existing space, how can I make it work for the function that I need to apply to it?
Right. So, but in such cases, so when you talk about it, doesn't take the ideology or the concept behind it and just provides you with a particular form, whichever you ask for. So
Yeah.
could we, so is there any chance, like, say, for example, I develop a plan for, say, for example, a house or a university campus or whatever. I design it as per the functionality, and then I upload the plan to Midjourney and ask it to, maybe visualize it in terms of the 3D form of it. Could that be done?
So there's the generative AI, and then there are sort of more narrowly crafted AI, which is like you can ask certain AIs to look at the sort of thermal loading based on the floor plan. So like if you've designed it, you put in like the sort of location, the geolocation of the site. You put in your design, you put in the location of the windows, and it will give you maybe an analysis of how those rooms may respond to the thermal loading from the sun, or which rooms might require more heating because they're facing north, you get less sunlight. So there's specific AI like that can look at a plan and analyze it according to sort of more narrowly defined needs. But with generative AI, like it's more or less an image. It's like image creating. You know what I mean? It's like I think about it like this. Like there's like a room, right? And in the room, someone will get like a symbol, a series of symbols for a language that they don't understand. But they have a book in front of them, and in that book, it translates that symbol to another symbol. So they'll get that symbol, they'll look at it. That person will find where that symbol is in the book and then translate it to another symbol and then pass it out the room. That person can't understand either language. And that's what the AI is doing. You're putting inputs. It's taking the input you're giving it, looking at this large language model, seeing what input you gave, and then handing it off. It doesn't understand. It's not, even though, and that's part of that. That's what I was saying. Like, it's got this like, it's like the AI candy effect. It appropriates the human sensibility about experiencing images and words, because we're used to understanding all of this in a way that's like we're used to understanding images and words and as a way that contributes to human culture. So when we see them, we immediately apply that. From what I think is like, we apply our theory of mind to this. Oh wow, look at this beautiful living room.
Right.
Wow, this is just, who designed it? What person designed this? You know what I mean? But no one designed it. It's just sort of stitched together to mimic it's simulating the human creative process.
Right.
So, all right, Shawna, thank you.
I have to jump.
One quick question. What do I do with the slideshow? Can I
Sure.
send that to you?
You can email it. You can email it to me, and why don't you email me the names of the other sessions, and I'll make sure you get access to it.
All right, cool, Shawna. All right, awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this tonight.
No, okay. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
And just a last question to bother you. I know you're getting late.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. So, are you now this is more towards like what you do. So you have been talking about the visualizations using Midjourney and AI until now, but so I don't know how to frame it, but so at Boston Architecture College, so is your specialization morely into visualization and AI, or
No,
what is it?
I wish it was. I wish it was. So I started teaching in graduate school. I taught the structural analysis. I was a graduate teaching assistant for the structural analysis sequence. So I was teaching like structural analysis of concrete, steel, and wood frame buildings, and doing experiments with students. That's where I started to love teaching. And then I moved to New York City, and I started teaching at the Art Institute of New York City. And I was teaching like, that's where I was teaching like architectural design studios, architectural drawing, like building systems and materials, structures courses. So I started to teach more like diverse courses. Then I taught at the New York Institute of Technology, where I taught lighting and design. I taught design studios there. I taught at the University of Buffalo. I taught at the Art Institute of New York City, the New York School of Interior Design, New York Institute of Technology. Then I taught at Mount Ida College. I taught the senior design studio there. And then COVID happened, and the Mount Ida College closed. And then I got a job teaching at Boston Architectural College. And I'm actually trying to find another place because I'm not happy with really teaching there, and I'm not teaching the classes I want to teach. I'm teaching a design studio now, but it's a small course, and they're not giving me a lot of agency. But it is a design course, and I am working with students, and I do let them. We do work with AI, and I do give them design projects and stuff. So yeah.
So what part of the you saying you do you have taken over a design studio right now. So what are you currently guiding students on? So urban design or residential, or what typology?
That's a great question. So I have both. It's a mixed course. It's like a really big course. So it's got both undergraduate and graduate students. It's got architecture students, interior design students, landscape architecture students, and digital design students. So it's like a general design course.
Right.
And I'm sort of teaching them a design process. So teaching them to think about, like, okay, whenever you design anything, like, think about you need to deeply consider the essential nature of what you're designing. Think about, like, what order is derived from your analysis of the essential nature, and then try to cultivate, like, a creative process where you free yourself from the fears and inhibitors that are barriers to creativity. Give yourself the gift of time and space, where you give yourself time to work on something without pressure, and you give yourself the space. You need a dedicated space where you're not interrupted, that's quiet, where you can work, and you can get to that deep thinking.
The fundamentals of the entire architectural design is where you are basically teaching right now.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because I'm an architect. I worked for around 2 years, so I was just curious in what particular typology are you into while teaching or something? Because I myself wanted to be an architectural professor, but I never figured out a way on how to get it done or how I could approach it. I am pursuing project management right now.
Yeah, I think you just look around. Like, where you're in Chicago, is that what you said?
Yeah. Currently, I'm in Michigan, but I'll be coming back to Boston now.
Oh, you will? Oh, yeah. So I would just look around, like, just do a Google job search. Do a Google search in Boston.
So I'm not an architect from here. I'm an architect from India.
I don't think it matters. I think it would be like, look at Boston Architectural College. They're always looking for people. And if you have any teaching experience, if you're ever like a teaching assistant or anything, like,
I don't.
That's okay. I don't think it's necessary. Like, if you have something, that's good. If you don't, it's probably fine too. And I think Boston Architectural College could be. A lot of me say this. A lot of people start their teaching careers at Boston Architectural College.
Oh, okay.
So
I'd look into it.
Yeah.
So
Go
ahead. Sorry.
A lot of people. I've met with academic affairs people there, and an enormous number of people get started teaching architecture at Boston Architectural College. So people are always coming and working for a while and leaving, and
in an adjunct position.
I'll tell you, like, the pay is not so great. So that's why people start going there, and they may teach one class, but it's like a night class. Most of the classes are at night, and some of the classes are virtual, so you can teach online. And so people get started there, and they love teaching, and it's a good place to get started. And then when they get some experience, then they go to teach somewhere else.
Then you go full time to some other college or something.
Yeah.
Right. By any chance, are you into BIM part of architecture? Yeah.
I'm not really into it.
Because I wanted to ask you something related to AI in BIM.
Oh, really?
Into BIM. So, because there's the new thing which has been coming up since, like, I guess around last 2 to 3 years. Evolve Lab is the name of the organization.
Is that right? I think that's a great, like, I had thought about this before. Like, the person that comes up with, like, merging building information modeling and AI is going to make a huge amount of money.
They already got it done. So I wanted to know if you have tried it.
I haven't tried it. Like if you can create something in like Midjourney and then give me the construction documents for this, and it just generates like that's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, that would be like
They haven't reached that part yet, but you know, to do the documentation part of it, you design everything, say for example in Revit or ArchiCAD or wherever, you design it, and they have a Glyph Copilot, which they have
okay.
come up with, and it does the documentation part of everything.
Wow, that's great.
So I just was curious, so just in case if you were aware of it, I'd discussed that as well, but that's
yeah.
all right.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
also myself trying to figure it out.
Yeah, okay.
All right, William. I'll mostly we'll connect over LinkedIn, and I'll try catching up with you. We'll have better talk on AI and architecture later on.
That sounds great. That sounds
Yep.
great.
Yep. Thank you. Looking
Take care.
forward.
All right,
Yep.
bye.